If you are at the bleeding edge of classic gaming, then you've heard of MiSTer, the open source FPGA-based emulation platform based on the fundamental goal of hardware accuracy. MiSTer already has tons of cores spanning 8 to 32-bit consoles, home computers, arcade games, and more. In this series, I'll feature one FPGA core every day for the next 21 days to ring in the new year. Alright, here's Double Dragon, the arcade game by Jotego. There's a lot of debate over what the best version of Double Dragon is. Many people have fond memories of it on the NES, but my fondest memory is playing the arcade cabinet at Shoe Carnival as a kid. These days it's still a great looking and sounding game considering it's from 1985, which is something a lot of people overlook when they critique it. Sure, it might not be the most replayable game, but the arcade graphics were really impressive back then when it was new, I'm told. And I still find them to be infinitely better than the NES's flickery, colorless mess. Sure, the arcade game is plagued by slowdown, and so is this MiSTer core, since it's a one-to-one copy pretty much, another masterpiece from Jotego, who I featured at length in the Ghost and Goblins video of this series. Check that out to get an idea of the kind of quality and dedication that Jotego puts into his arcade cores. To put it simply, they're essentially arcade hardware clones written in FPGA. He buys or gets physical access to every single PCB that he then transcodes into hardware description language, after logic probing the real hardware and getting the timing absolutely perfect. Basically, you get a one-to-one exact clone of any digital circuit in FPGA if you take the hardcore approach to your hardware description language, which is exactly what MiSTer coders like Jotego do. I actually own the Double Dragon arcade PCB, as well as Double Dragon 2 and 3. I did a full playthrough stream of Double Dragon 1 if you look back through my channel. But when Jotego announced that he was doing this core, I almost instantly put my PCB up for sale. And I'm glad I sold it. It wasn't my favorite game of all time, it was big, and someone else will appreciate it more than me. I will be hanging on to Double Dragon 2 and 3 though, for the time being at least. It wouldn't surprise me at all though if we see those in the near future, although, once seen, Double Dragon 2 and 3 can't be unseen. Just a fair warning. Now that I've seen the core though, I'm really glad I sold it. The video quality from MiSTer's RGB output is so much better than my real PCB was. It was noisy and the colors had waves in them that I could never really get around, probably due to some strange sync issues. Getting RGB video to a CRT is simple in MiSTer though. You just need a cheap direct video dongle or an I/O board add-on. Either one will give you perfect 240p RGB, VGA, or component video from this and other MiSTer cores. And you can even apply the hardware scaler in the analog mode and go to a higher resolution if you desire, which is really nice for higher resolution VGA monitors and BVMs. Most people will just hook this up to their TV via HDMI though, and it's perfect for that. You really do need to apply one of Sultan G42's excellent video filters though to get the most out of it. Either something pure like interpolation sharp or nearest neighbor scaling, or one of the dozens of scanline options, which is my preference since they're not normal scanline filters. They're mathematically perfect more like a shader, and will never stretch out the pixels weirdly or cut them off halfway. The aspect ratio of every single pixel is always scaled perfectly, as long as you have integer scaling enabled in your INI file. Double Dragon is an old beat-em-up. And for a lot of people, it's going to be a nostalgic trip back to the arcade or pizza parlors of your childhood. For others who only ever knew the home ports, it may turn out to be surprisingly better than it's commonly portrayed. I think that a lot of the misconceptions regarding Double Dragon are due to the fact that it just doesn't emulate perfectly in MAME, or in the later home ports of the arcade game, which looked, sounded, and felt subpar. And that really hurts a game that already suffers from some slowdown. And about the slowdown, Jotego has planned to add a feature that may fix all that. Since we're essentially dealing with real arcade hardware in the FPGA, you can easily mod the circuit as if it were a real PCB. So for Jotego, solving Double Dragon's notorious slowdown will be simple. That was actually the first thing I looked into when I got my real arcade PCB, because I played it and the slowdown is real. I went on forums to try to find out if there's any sort of overclocking or ROM fix you could do, and it's kind of funny because I saw a steady stream of other poor souls who are trying to do the exact same thing for decades. No one ever did though, to my knowledge. The popular opinion was that such a modification on a real PCB would be a serious operation. Jotego has us covered though, and that is one of those magical features that you get to look forward to in MiSTer. So there it is, Double Dragon, the arcade game. Forget what you've been told about it and just give it a shot. Just remember that it's a 1985 game before you judge it too harshly. Taken in that context, it's a lot of stupid, simple fun from Technos. Just please promise me you'll avoid the Atari 7800 port. It's horrible. Remember to support Jotego on Patreon if you like his cores, so you can get early access to whatever wizardry he's up to. This video represents a snapshot of the core as it exists today, but by the time you're watching this in the future, it may have been improved or expanded with new features. Hit the subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the latest MiSTer happenings, and ring the bell to be notified when I go live for a stream. If you like the channel, consider supporting it. Patreon support at any level gets you an instant invite to the SmokeMonster Elite Discord and early access to my videos. Thank you so much for your support, I really appreciate it.